A good day to die hard. Well, is it a good day to die hard? It might be a good day to die hard for this franchise. And what I mean by that is, it's not that good. But I'll tell you what it is the best thing for. A good day to die hard is the best thing that could have ever happened to Live Free and Die Hard. Because from now on, people are going to say Live Free or Die Hard wasn't that bad. It at least felt more like a Die Hard movie. If I were to compare A Good Day to Die Hard to anything, it would probably be to The Last Stand. But The Last Stand, granted, A Good Day to Die Hard does have more action. I will give it that. But it's very comparable in feel and just underwhelmingness to The Last Stand. But at least The Last Stand didn't have a franchise that it was supporting, that it was supposed to be coming from. Thus, as a result, you can't complain it for having a pacing, for how it does its characters, anything like that. It has no burden to bear. It can do its own thing, and it can get away with it. However, A Good Day to Die Hard is a Die Hard movie. And by the way, before we get any further into this review, it is really stupid that they are refusing to put numbers on these movies. It is really, really stupid. Just call it Die Hard 5, for crying out loud. You could Die Hard V for victory. So, call it Die Hard 5. If you want to give it a subtitle, Die Hard 5, A Good Day to Die Hard. Boom. I get annoyed as hell when they do this. Just call it 2. Just call it 3. Just call it 4. Just call it 5. If you want to give some of the later ones subtitles, that's fine. Just do it. It gets annoying with the naming thing. I'd rather them just label 1, 2, 3. I mean, help us out here, people. We know we're seeing a sequel. Don't pretend like we don't know that. Of course, we have 4 to blame for that. Oh, I'm sorry. Live Free and Die Hard. After Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, Die Hard 3. And yes, there are exceptions. I don't care when the Pirates of the Caribbean all have subtitles, because the first movie had a subtitle. Or if you do something like it's a prequel, then sometimes it's hard to do in the number order. So when you tell a film, if the trilogy's told out of order, fine. That's another exception. But, in some way, I don't mind that they called Underworld Rise of the Lycans. They didn't call that Underworld 3 because it took place before, and it's annoying with the numbering. Especially if you're like me, who, when I put them on my shelf, I put them like by what place they kind of take place in sometimes. But you know what? Even Pirates of the Caribbean, the DVDs, they actually started to number. Like, they actually wanted to actually give Pirates of the Caribbean 2, Pirates of the Caribbean 3. As I'm looking at the DVDs right now. There you go, Disney. Disney at least has some common sense there. Alright, tangent over. Let's get back on track. So what's the problem with Live Free and Die Hard? A Good Day to Die Hard? A lot. The plot is kind of a mess, and you could tell that it was probably rewritten 2, probably 3 times. And they probably needed a 4th rewrite just to tighten everything up, make everything make sense, drop things that didn't transition well from the rewrites. And they probably didn't do that because they were rushing to get this thing out. Which leaves us with a bit of a confusing plot, underwritten characters, and very just like we don't get the motivations. And I'll get into that in a second. The other problem is you could tell Bruce Willis wasn't giving a fuck. He was doing this as a paycheck. I almost got the sense that this was probably... Now, if I'm wrong on this, correct me, because I haven't done the research, even though I probably could. It would probably take an hour or 2, but I could probably find out the film when all this stuff was filmed. But I have a feeling this is just when he did Looper, and right after, probably around the time he had filmed Looper, and then also had probably just filmed and was waiting to get released the G.I. Joe movie when it was then delayed or sent back. And he probably was feeling, I don't know if he was that competent in Looper, So I had a feeling he was probably going to. I think my career's about to take a bad turn right now. They want to do another Die Hard movie. I'll sign on to that just for the page. Yeah, sure. I think he was probably feeling a little unsure of himself, and you could tell he was not happy doing this. I'd imagine like his next film that if you see him in it, well, we'll see how he does in G.I. Joe, but next film after this, we'll see if he's like if he's a little perkier. Like after it turns out Looper was like successful. It's interesting because these movies take so long to make, and so you can see like how actors are unsure. They start doing weird stuff again. But you can tell he really doesn't care. He's just kind of coasting through this. Like some people are going, "Oh, yeah, Bruce Willis is fine at least in this." No, Bruce Willis really lacked a lot of effort in this one. Although I will at least give Jay Courtney, he put a little bit more effort in. Then again, he doesn't have his repertoire, so for him it's probably a big step up. Jay Courtney plays Jack McClane, or who we actually find out at the end his actual name is John McClane. Yeah, so Jay Courtney really, he's Spartacus, the Spartacus HBO series is about that's his biggest thing he's been in. I mean, he was in Jack Reacher, which I didn't see, so I can't comment on that. So we have not doing well there, and you know what? The character, along with that characterization, the biggest problem is like since I just talked about Jack McClane there. Jack and John McClane don't really do much in this movie. Like, well, they do much. It's their interaction. All they talk about is like, we have father-son issues. We have father-son issues. We have father-son issues. Beating that horse to death. And no matter what the situation's, like they don't even care about what the fuck's going on in the plot. They're just like, hey, we're in a shootout, let's have a discussion about our issues, but they don't actually get to anything. Like, if you're going to compare like the father-son having issues and trying to rebond over extraordinary circumstances, the movie you tend to go to is Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. But you know what happens? There's some tension. Of course, it's implied like they're not getting along too well. They talk about that before they even meet Sean Connery. But when they meet them, they're focused on what's going on. They both kind of agree that the plot is more important than their personal issues, but you can see the tension that happens sometimes, like the little moments, like after he guns down the Nazis and Sean Connery says like, "Look at what you did! I can't believe what you did!" And you get some sense of where the tension, of where like the disconnect between the two is happening, like when Sean Connery breaks the vase over Indiana Jones' head, and he's more concerned with the fact that he had damaged what he thought was an antique vase because he's so wrapped up in his own studies, his own academia, that he doesn't really ask about Indiana Jones and stuff. And Indiana Jones thinks at first he's talking about him, and then picks up that once again his father is more wrapped up in his work than about his own personal issues. So we get little moments like that where we again see, not told, that the two have issues. And then, of course, there's that scene later on where they actually do sit down and discuss their father-son issues. Here they keep on pushing it. They just kind of comment, like, they keep on saying, "Oh, kid's ungrateful," and stuff like that, or "you never were around." And they keep on saying, "We're going to have a long talk about this. We're going to have a long talk." They never actually show a long talk where they both kind of express their problems and where they both stem from and how they both acknowledge it. They don't have that. In Indiana Jones and Last Crusade, they had the scene in the Zeppelin where they're sitting down for dinner and they're actually genuinely like talking, both acknowledging their problems, and you kind of get revealed that it was kind of probably more about the death of Indiana Jones's mother and how after she died they kind of lost the balancing act between the two. Like you get the sense in there that she kind of knew that they both of them had she helped facilitate their relationship, and when she died they both reacted in ways that clashed with each other. You don't get that here. We don't get any explanation of why, what was the tension? Was it some sort of, was there an incident that he started where McClane, arrested a friend of his for doing drugs, or something like that? Anything to give us more of an explanation other than that he wasn't around as a cop. That's like kind of it. Yeah. Not working well with that. The other problem I have with this is I know I have one or two people that have subscribed, I believe, are Russians. Let me put it to you guys this way. If a federal courthouse was blown up, and before anyone comments about what I just said with federal courthouse, Russian Federation, so a national level court, it would be a federal court because they have a federal government. There's always, there's always that smartass that thinks they know more. It's like federal means U.S. No, federal means any government that is federal level. A federal court is the national level court. So Germany, they have federal level courts. Even Mexico has a federal level court. It's not exclusive to us. I want to preempt that. But if a federal courthouse in the heart of Moscow was blown up, would Moscow pretty much have like Ministry of Interior troops all over the place? Am I not incorrect there? Like Moscow Police Department, the militia, are they still called that? I forget if they still call the police militia or not. But the Ministry of Interior, police of all levels is like spanning the streets all over the place. Maybe even some actual army units locking down the city. Or would you see no cops at all? Because there's a scene where they blow up a courthouse. Not even entirely. They they knock out a wall so they can get in. And this is where my nitpicking comes in, but I'm gonna nitpick it anyway. Because this is what I was thinking the entire time. This is a bad cliche they have for many action movies. So these guys blow up this courthouse just enough to knock out the wall. There's still plenty of security out front. They blow up a side wall. And one, you'd figure a lot of the troops, because they show there's a ton of security out in front of the courthouse, would immediately start rushing over towards where the bombing happened. But they don't, apparently. Instead, they pull up with an MRAP and they get out, and these guys get out. However, they're all wearing business style suits. Maybe a little bit more flashy, club style suits, you could say, but they're wearing suits with gas masks. They should instantly go, those are probably the bad guys. They look like either Russian mafia or terrorists. If they had bothered wearing, I don't know, military style fatigues or Russian interior ministry, or even this military-esque fatigues of some sort, you could maybe buy that the interior security troops or whatever troops were there would just assume they were part of the security response team. And you could see how they would sneak in and sneak out with the disaster because they look like they belong there. They don't, though, and nobody kind of responds. They just shoot one guard that's already wounded just to kind of go, look how bad we are. That's all they do. And then they have a chase throughout most of Moscow with this giant MRAP, which is just wrecking stuff left and right. And at one point, there's one cop car that shows up, and with one cop inside, and they shoot him. That's it. There's no helicopters. There's no bigger response. Here's something. Russia has what they call a Ministry of Interior. And the Ministry of Interior is like our Department of Homeland Security, only it's like our Department of Homeland Security as people crazy gun nuts envision DHS is. Because the Ministry of Interior has its own army. They're basically troops. They're basically soldiers, but all they do is secure and do security within the country. So you figure there would be a much heavier response. Again, if they implied that maybe even these guys are actual interior security people, and that's why they're never getting caught, because they just okay, we're responding to that. it would have worked better. And you figure in this movie they probably should have, because they actually went the extra mile on a few things here. I actually noticed this, and I mentioned this in a couple of videos, but one of the things I like to study is military uniforms. I don't know why, it's just something I like to do for whatever reason. And I actually picked up that when they showed like the prison guards and all that, they were actually wearing proper Russian prison uniforms. The military, they're not military. I forget exactly what they were classified under, but Russian prison guards wear this kind of weird blue tiger stripe style camouflage. It's fairly unique. And of course the prisoners kind of wear this weird kind of gray fatigues. It's almost like you'd envision, somewhat is like, that's how I'd envision most prison guards wear, but that's what the prisoners wear. It's this kind of gray fatigues. And I was like, at first I was like, wow, they really got some like authentic experts on Russian military and government and all that stuff. So this is probably a well-researched film, so they're gonna probably have more really good like authentic stuff in there. No, but somewhere in there they had at least one person who was like, I can get you the exact uniforms Russian prison guards wear and all that stuff. I'll give him credits for that, just because I noticed it, but I'm probably like the only person that'll notice that. Outside of maybe a few people like are from Russia and would immediately recognize that they're wearing the proper uniforms. Anyway, so they go through this chase. They later have a shootout in a building with a freaking Hind helicopter. Where they got a Hind helicopter, I don't know. Why do people assume that you can just like easily acquire military attack helicopters in Russia? Like, I know that was a thing to do in the 90s because there was this whole thing where they had this massive military machine that all of a sudden you didn't have the personnel to control, and was being sold left and right. But I am under the impression, at least, that it's a lot more secure nowadays. The stockpiles have been significantly reduced over the years, and like, if it's working military grade equipment, it tends to be under the security. They tend to have control over it now. In the 90s you could get away with that just because things were getting really, really distracted, or not distracted, but there was just a breakdown in the 90s as the new Russia was kind of being reformed and reforged and all that stuff. 2013, I don't know if I buy that, just some random. I mean, yes, they're kind of working with the guy that's supposed to be put in charge of the Russian military, but he's not quite there yet. So how they have an attack helicopter and how no one responds to this attack helicopter. I mean, I'm assuming the Russians like have like a regular sortie of fighter jets that kind of like the United States has on its east coast that kind of patrol. And if you got reports that a helicopter was blasting up a big building in Moscow, they would probably respond to that. I don't know. And then they go to Pripyat in Ukraine, which I was surprised they pointed out that it's a different country. They barely did, but so they go to Chernobyl. Chernobyl's the actual reactor. Pripyat's the town that's they had to evacuate. That's around Chernobyl. And well, again, another big shootout scene. Although of course they have to reveal, because it's a Die Hard movie, know what you first think. It's not really what you first think. It's all about some sort of evil, simple plan to make money. Apparently, this all boils down to the fact that they have this one guy, Yuri, who used to work with the guy that's going to become the defense minister. They had both in the 80s were selling uranium on the side to whom I don't know. And apparently one guy said he kept a file on it that would, basically sink this guy's political career, which is why he wants him dead, or more importantly, he wants the file. As it turns out, this was all elaborate hoax by Yuri to force this guy to basically knock him out of prison, to force them to find where the file is. Which, when he told him it actually wasn't the file, it was all this uranium he'd been stockpiling. That he's now going to take this uranium and then sell it on the black market. To whom I don't know. I don't think there's as big a sale for uranium nowadays Terrorists don't have that much money. It's kind of hard. And then if you ever do get a detonator, they're going to trace that shit back to whoever sold them that uranium. And there ain't anyone going to cover your ass for that. I mean, you could sell to what? The Iranians? The Iranians probably don't want to buy it because the uranium... The Iranians have their own sources of uranium. And they kind of... Their whole point of their program is they want it to be completely independent. Like, they don't want to have to rely on outside sources for their materials. So no matter what, they're going to want their own nuclear stuff. So the Iranians probably don't need to bother with it. North Koreans might, but how much money are the North Koreans really going to have? It's a country where most of the people are starving. Burma, except Burma probably, again, they have their own sources. And they really like to disguise their weapons program as being... The Burmese know how to play the international game, which is why they're not North Korea. They came close, and then they were like, yeah, we actually like having luxuries, so we're not going to go the full path of North Korea. We'd rather just play United States and China off one another. So there you go. Anyway, so they wind up again. This goes back to what I... So they figure out that this guy's fooling everyone. He has somehow he was able to know exactly when this is like perfect timing. How do these guys know this is going to turn out this way? Perfect timing of him getting out the phone and calling the defense minister guy, who's getting, of course, a back massage. And he apparently knew this guy was going to get a back massage right at this exact moment, because as he's talking to on the phone, he had already planted an assassin masseuse to snap his neck or choke him to death. How did the masseuse know to take him out then? Like, did he know that what happens if he was just waiting for a phone call to be made? Like, what happens if it was like a random like telemarketer calling him like too early? That would have been embarrassing. Like he sees him pick up the phone and then he like snaps the neck, and then the phone rings again and he like picks it up. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, boss. You told me when he got the phone call. Like, you didn't tell me how I would know. I snapped him when he was ordering pizza. Sorry, I ruined your moment, boss. Like, how do they plan that shit? And what happens if like he got there like 5 minutes early, got the massage all done, and was like on his way out, and he got the phone call. He's like, now you're going to be strangled on a... What was his name? Komarov. He's like, by who? I'm sitting in the back of my taxi. What? You're supposed to be getting a masseuse job. Yeah, I just got done with the masseuse. I got there about 10 minutes early and finished up 10 minutes faster. Oh, well, this is awkward. This kind of ruins my entire plan. Like, what would have happened if he did that? Or what happens if he's just like, fuck it, I don't feel like getting a massage today. Yeah, you always wonder that in like movies when there's like the timing's all perfect. Like, what happens when real life actually... They actually make this point. This is the other thing. Like, when they're first busting out of this jail, apparently they knew there was going to be an attempt on this guy's life, and McClane's plan was that when apparently he knew they were going to bomb this building to knock out the cages, and that both his cage and the other guy's cage, they would be able to easily escape from. He had a car planted like a block away. All this stuff, and his plan completely relied, like, as he's driving down, he winds up stopping because he sees his father, who notices like him escape out the side. Mind you, they're still in the prison outfits. Why none of the Russian security forces like stop them? And McClane was able to spot these two, but he like stops for a minute to just go like, "Get out of here, Dad! You're ruining everything. Get out!" And apparently that 1 minute delay was enough to completely ruin their plans. Like, there was like a whole setup. Somehow they got a Global Hawk drone over Moscow. I'm fairly certain those drones are not stealth. that they were gonna like it was following them. Why it wasn't shot down, I don't know, but they were gonna extract this guy. Apparently, though, that 1 minute delay out of everything was enough for them to not all of a sudden the distraction had to be canceled. And he tries to make that point, like, this is a real world, shit happens. I'm like, yeah, and you had a plan that had a 1 minute when, like, if you get delayed by 1 minute for whatever reason, the plan's completely foobar. That's a really crappy plan. Like, what happens if the bomb went off and it, like, didn't quite knock the cages? That's like, the cages withhold, like, they have these, like, holding cells in the court. Like, what happens if they, like, weren't destroyed enough for you to get out? What happens if it took you an extra minute? What happens if, like, one or two of the guards in there, like, survive that attack relatively well? What happens if, like, again, the security guys came around the side and both stopped you? What happens if there was some more traffic on the road and it caused you an extra delay? Were you going through all the lights? It's not very subtle. And again, what happens if somebody's stuck in the middle of the road? It's a really, really piss poor plan. And they seemed surprised when this thing failed. I don't know. Maybe that's like one of those things with the script. They should have probably put in something where it took them longer to get out of the courthouse than they planned, so they were already running way behind. Maybe then you could have bought it a little bit more, like they were already cutting their window shorter than they would have planned for. I don't know. What I do know is that the film was meh. It's probably also someone ruined it. The people directly behind me were talking through the whole damn thing and not saying anything intelligent. They're going, hey, that's the bad guy. Oh, he got shot. Yes, he did. You know why I know that? Because I'm watching the movie. You don't have to tell me that. Yes, that guy did get shot. So. And of course, before I go, it's about to end it right there. Biggest disappointment, though, is, once again, it's John McClane's Superman. Which the previous movies, it was always supposed to be more realistic. Like, this is just a guy, he's got to overcome all these crazy obstacles being thrown in his way. Here, he's fucking Superman, and he kind of, like, knows it. Like, even to the point where that's why he's, like, passively talking to his son. And all this stuff, like, when people are trying to kill him with rocket launchers and shit, it seems to just be mildly annoying him. Even, like, when his son gets a freaking piece of rebar sticking out of his abdomen, which I'm pretty sure, if he actually had that, even if it didn't have any vital organs, one, that would be damn lucky. Two, ripping out rebar like that is probably the worst thing you could do. You're certainly going to rip up some of your intestines doing that. Ripping it out like that. Like, you really need to see a hospital. That's like a couple-week recovery injury right there. And he's like, are you going to cry? He's like, it's a fucking piece of rebar. He should be screaming right now when you rip that stuff out. And then you got a giant puncture hole. Great. Yeah, you rip that out. Now you have that thing bleeding. You really need to take your son to the hospital. He's going to bleed out. But no, it's like, he rips it out within like 2 seconds. And he's like, I am good to go. Man, that is like, gave me an extra spank of energy when he did that. And you're like, really? Really? When this entire thing, all the other diehards have always been about much more realistic damage and just getting the shit beaten out of you and feeling the shit getting beaten out of you. But they don't have that there, and that's why it's not a very good sequel to Die Hard. Is it an absolutely horrible movie? No, it does have its action sequences. It has a lot of those action sequences. It gets, though, the constant back and forth, but not going anywhere, banter about John McClane and John and Jack's father-son relationship that actually really doesn't go anywhere because they don't do anything with that. It's annoying, but again, there is action in it. More so than The Last Stand. It's got set-piece action, but again, the cuts, like, you could probably put this on, I put this on in the background if I'm doing something else, I want background sound. And especially if it's a background sound, it's not going to make me want to stop whatever I'm doing and actually watch a movie, which is sometimes a problem if you put something on just for background and all that, like it starts interesting you. And like I had that problems a couple times when I'm doing. I was in college. Like, you're like trying to type up work, you put something on in the background, all of a sudden it's like, I forgot how good this movie was. This 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes turns into 2 hours, and shit. There goes my evening, because now I get to spend the rest of the night trying to finish this thing. That's its good purpose. If you really like are bored as hell, and you're looking for something to do because you're snowed in, maybe if you find like if you don't mind spending the money, the probably $20 to see this movie with popcorn. If not, watch something else. Trying to think what's out. Something, anything. I don't know about anything. I don't know about the Twilight knockoff that's out going on right now. There, it does have Jeremy Irons in it though. Eh. Anyway, that's Die Hard, or I should say, that is not Live Free or Die Hard. A Good Day to Die Hard. Ironic that they had used that one. Oh yeah, there was one. Of course, they have the one they call him the dancer. Character's like, I hate you Americans. I hate everything about you. Where is this coming from? Why is this like they have this Hollywood stereotype? Like, oh, he said he doesn't like Americans. America, fuck yeah, we gotta hate this guy. Really? It seems that's like an outdated character in my opinion. I mean, unless like, especially for like a Russian style guy. I don't know why. I mean, if the guy's Middle Eastern, it could be said, okay, yeah, we might have done some like make the guy Iraqi. He doesn't. We need that's all you need to explain because we can then infer like, okay, probably had an okay life until the U.S. invaded. We can buy something like that, but for a Russian guy, like just to hate America for hating America's sake is cliche and poor characterization. Unless you like think of like some like for a Die Hard movie, it would have been more funny like to have him go like, hey, like why do you hate Americans so much? Because my wife is Canadian, she constantly gets confused for you guys. That would have been like a little bit like, it's like what or like why do you hate Americans? Because I'm a Blue Jays fan. Yeah, something like kind of silly like that. That would have been like silly, but at least give some sort of stupid explanation. Let's face it, there are people that I'm from Jersey. There are people that hate Texas just because the Dallas Cowboys are from Texas. And I imagine there's people like that absolutely loathe New Jersey or New York just because the Giants and the Jets come from New York. Like, I could actually see that. I think I've rambled on quite enough, so yeah, I avoid this one unless you're like a Die Hard fan, in which case you've probably already seen it and are already disappointed. And if you haven't, you're going to be disappointed. Sorry to let you know. Like, I had heard some bad things about this one. I thought that would... Normally, if I hear bad things about a movie beforehand, I change my expectations mentally, and therefore, I wind up liking it more than most other people. In this case, though, no. I heard bad things, and it wasn't that good. Trailer-wise, I didn't see anything really new. There was the After Earth trailer, which I did now notice there were like spaceships in there, like seems like alien ships attacking those two. And I have a feeling I know what the twist in this one's gonna be. And I'm gonna call it right now. Is that it's not actually in the future; it's in the past. Like, because I think I noticed one or two of those creatures were like the extinct mammals, like from the prehistoric era. So I have a feeling like that's what's gonna be. It's like they're in Africa, and at the end, like they decide to like settle, and that's what kickstarts human civilization. Like there'll be some twists where the aliens took humans from the planet, and now they come back. I don't know. That's my guess because Shyamalan's got to do a twist, and I have a feeling that's what his twist is gonna be, unless he really breaks with form, which would be good. Maybe. I don't know. Oblivion still looks better out of the two. Nothing else really. There was the Fast and the Furious one, which, my God, how many movies has that gotten up to? Whew. I mean, I liked the first one, but the first one was very well grounded. They didn't do all this crazy stuff, and the first one was hijacking a single normal truck with a trucker with a shotgun. That was like the main problem. That was like the big showdown. Was this like a random trucker? They were trying to hijack his truck, and because he heard rumors of other trucks getting hijacked, he brought a shotgun with him. That was it. Now they're like taking on military convoys with tanks. I'm like, what the? Why? Why does this have to be on the road? Why don't you just wait till they get to wherever they're going and then this pin them down there? Like it seems like they really make contrivances to make this happen on the road. You know what police have found out? It's a lot easier not to bother chasing. Once you know who these people are, just find out where they sleep and show up in the middle of the night. It's not as sexy, no, but it works really well, and you don't put the civilians in danger. Because everybody sleeps at some point. I don't know. Hopefully we'll see some better films coming up. I forget what's coming out next week, if anything. Though we are getting closer to March, so we'll have a few films in March, including the G.I. Joe sequel, which I had to talk at like a pre-video about that. But signing off for now. Check out my reviews, like them, subscribe, all the regular stuff. Signing off.